And with that, we are live. How's it going, guys? So, I took last Monday off, obviously, and I took the week off before that. So, now we're going to actually have a video about Steven Crowder complaining about people taking days off. And then, of course, we're going to tackle Hunter Avallone after that, because Hunter's being pedantic as hell and gets upset at everything, apparently. So, we can go ahead and start with Crowder after everybody in the chat has told me how their day is going. Because, again, I didn't stream on Monday. I actually didn't live stream on my channel at all last week. I did nothing but edited content. And I had the week off the week before for a mental health break. So I haven't had a chance to actually hang out with you guys for a little bit. So let's go ahead and go to where the chat can actually be seen. So we can have a chat for like 2 or 3 minutes before we start this. Jack and Quill says they're doing really well. Hasn't been anything special. Kadama says that I'm going mining and crafting. Fair enough. Thomas says moving is a bitch. Yeah, I figured. Not I figured as in I knew. I had no idea that you were moving. But I personally cannot stand moving. So, yeah, no, I get that. Definitely. JMD Apologetics says stressed out with Greek. Fair enough. Fair enough. Been okay practicing the Mojave? Alrighty, fair enough. That YouTube channel has links. Abby Fritz says, I'm feeling kind of like shit. Well, maybe we'll be able to fix that. Hopefully. Hopefully we'll be able to fix that. Because I have no way of knowing whether or not this is going to be an enjoyable stream for anybody. I sat through this video once, and I didn't really enjoy what I listened to the first time. Maybe a second listening through will yield different results. Who knows? I have no way of knowing. But, as usual, before we get into the actual stream itself, I know I'm looking away from the camera constantly. I apologize for that. But before we get into the stream itself, I do want to do the arbitrary plugs because I like being able to eat food and survive. And YouTube demonetizes practically every video I make, so it's not like I actually get to survive off of ad revenue like I thought I once would be able to. So, for anybody who would like to support the channel, the basic non-money ways that you can always do that are by hitting the notification bell, because that allows you to see videos when they come out. So, on the off chance that I actually do get advertiser dollars, when those actually come in, you'll be able to actually see, hey, video's out. I can go ahead and support the channel by watching a video. So that's neat. I still one day need to figure out where I can put that animation where it's not like right in front of my face. Not that I don't enjoy Raz's ass in my face. But, of course, there's also always the subscribe button, because those numbers also help in the algorithm greatly. And then, of course, there is Patreon, which is the go-to way that you can support. However, if you would like to support the channel while also getting something in return, while supporting me and Emmett specifically, because Emmett is the artist behind these, then, of course, there is the shop. So if you guys want mugs with memes from the channel, so Very H, Let's Do a Thing, and, of course, the Neko Girl Cirrus that, thanks to Jack Vulture, became incredibly ubiquitous across all of my channel, those are there, and you can check those out whenever you get a chance. But anywho, that's all the arbitrary plugs out of the way, I think. Oh, and also, one other thing. If we have to ban somebody in chat, which I don't want to. Everybody here knows that I don't like banning people in chat. But if we do have to, we have this now. So we actually have a real banhammer, should we need to. So that's a thing. Anywho, with all that said, let us continue. Oh, why does it say live chat is unavailable? I know I can see it, like, in the YouTube thing. Who made that? It is in the fan art section of the Discord, actually. The user is in there if anybody would like to dig back into the fan art section and send me the name of the user who made the banhammer. So, yeah. There we are. With that said, let's go ahead and start with the ever so lovely and eloquent Steven Crowder, who is LARPing a millionaire. Oh, wait. He is one. So he's got a lot of opinions on poor people, apparently. So let's begin. And if volume levels are strange, then please let me know so I can fix them.
Oh, hello there. Allow me to express an unpopular opinion for a moment, if I may. Labor Day, as a national holiday, is a scam, and I hate it.
Oh, okay. So Labor Day as a holiday is a scam. That's what we're beginning with. Also, before we get to do anything else, I recognize that I need to actually change my audio levels. So allow me half a second, because I am a dumb, and I did not actually set my audio levels properly, apparently. Or is Crowder just that low? Is Crowder just that low? Okay. Apparently. Hannibal says, when are we going to see Novo in a cartoon? I have no idea. It all depends on when they want. But I will go ahead and forward that has been requested. All right, continue.
No, I'm not going to try and steal your get-out-of-work-free day. You can rest easy enjoying your barbecue and beer while your boss ultimately picks up the slack to keep your pay stubs coming in, all because some arbitrary holiday was marketed to celebrate the working class and you now feel entitled to it. It's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every first Monday of September.
Wait, hold on. So, picking a man's pocket every first Monday of September. So, first of all, the only people that this applies to, at all, are people who are on salaried wage. Because, well, actually, no. There are very few companies that will actually pay you for not working on Labor Day, or at least pay you like double or half day for working on Labor Day. Very few companies will do this. If you're salaried, of course, then you get a flat salary, whether you work 30 days in the month or whether you work 2 days in the month. Though if you worked 2, then you and your boss might be having a conversation. So the idea that you're picking someone's pocket already presupposes that somebody's working and getting paid for Labor Day, even though they are not always paid for Labor Day, nor do they have to be paid for Labor Day. So, also, seeing him in that robe violates my everything. Fair enough, Shalashai. I agree 110%. So, the other thing that strikes me as weird about the way this argument is going to begin. So taking a free day, right, is bad. That's the premise of the argument. So if we accept that premise, which I'm willing to accept that premise because it leads to some logical absurds, we have to accept that weekends are bad. We have to accept that vacation days are bad. And we have to accept the fact that Crowder took 2 months off last year and asked people to pay for Mug Club. And keep funneling money into him as he moves studios. But the 1 day is bad. That 1 day is really bad. But 2 months for Crowder? A-okay. Pay for Mug Club. Subtle plug for shirts and shit. Teespring link is down below. Anywho, that subtle bit of hypocrisy aside, It's very strange when I hear from someone like Crowder who forwards a lot of his work to other people that working am bad, or that not working am bad. It's strange. It's very strange. But let's continue.
Seeing as I'm apparently the only one who knows that around here, allow me to explain my opinion. Now,
oh! The only one who knows it. Also, this is a wonderful screen that we have frozen Crowder on. Just saying. But, so, I hate that I'm pausing repeatedly. I know that people don't like when I do that sometimes, but also when somebody says something dumb, I'm going to interrupt them, whether it's in real life or whether it's in a video. Just in a video, I get the power of the pause button. Excellent. Thank you, media. So, what we have here beginning, let's repeat his point.
Seeing as I'm apparently the only one who knows that around here.
He's the only one that knows that around here. Crowder doesn't have an ego whatsoever. He doesn't have a massive narcissistic complex at all. Except every time that he demonstrates that he does. Okay.
Allow me to explain my opinion. Now, Labor Day was created at a rare moment in history where unions actually served a purpose beyond bitching about six-figure benefit packages and determining which other members' tires they'd slash because of bullshit card check voting.
Oh! Wait, so Crowder has a problem with violence instigated by unions? Hold up. I have some notes on United States history that I took for this video. When the 8-hour workday was being argued for, because after the Industrial Revolution, people were working 12-hour workdays and were having to work 7 days a week, and that was largely considered unfair. People were being worked into the ground, people were getting sick, and they still weren't making enough to take care of their families. So we got a carryover from something in Europe. In Europe, we had what were called the merchants' guilds. Unions are a carryover of merchants' guilds. Merchants' guilds were a way to collaborate and figure out how best to work in a particular trade. So you'd have a merchants' guild for masonry, where ideas would be coalesced and wages for the actual workers would be figured out for the guilds. But if Crowder's point is going to be against violent protests, let's take a look at United States history. Nationwide, there was a strike called for an 8-hour workday. And in Chicago, an actual rally was held after this during this nationwide strike. Because the strike itself was just people not working, but the rally is the actual political protest. Well, they're both protesting, but one is the more active protest. Historically, anarchists and socialists happen to be the people who actually attended the rally due to bad weather. Because bad weather is really inconvenient for people who are not working, apparently. But, anarchists and socialists, people who are typically on the left, well, anarchists are typically on the left. Socialists are part of the left. No real way around that. They're the ones that actually participated in this rally. And it's called the Chicago Haymarket Event, or the Chicago Haymarket Affair, however you want to word it. Google will find you into the exact same place either way. So, what happened in here? Well, this protest involved several police officers trying to push back the protesters and preventing them from essentially protesting the way they're supposed to be allowed to. However, some of the protesters did not like that, and one of them was actually packing explosives and threw the explosives at the police officers. The end result of that were several injuries. 7 police officers died, and an unknown but high amount of workers were killed. Anarchist and socialist workers, so I guess those numbers don't matter, right? According to people like Crowder. Anywho, point being, also, fun fact, many of the injuries that were sustained there on the police side were from the police own bullets, not from the workers. Like, the explosive device was the primary damage done to the police officers, and then after that, it was a lot of guns from the police officers on their own on accident. That's a bad look. But, anywho, so this protest, what happened as a result of this protest? Well, some of the people who organized were hung. One of them was in prison and actually committed suicide by dynamite. He put a stick of dynamite in his mouth and committed suicide within the prison itself. I'm not exactly sure how he got the dynamite, but that's what history says. And then 3 of them were actually pardoned. As a result of this incident, labor leaders pushed for May 1st to be considered a celebration for workers in response to all of this, because people were having to fight for their rights to be protected by the government, but they weren't. The government was not taking care of them at all, in any way, shape, or form. This is important because of something that Stephen's going to bring up later, but historically, the government did not help the workers at all. They didn't give a shit. This is one of the reasons anarchists were so crucial in this particular part of that battle. In response to this, Grover Cleveland, am I saying that right? Is that the right one? Yeah, Grover Cleveland, president at the time, said, actually, no, we don't want May 1st to be a national holiday, because we were pushing for a national holiday as a method of observance for what labor unions were trying to push in the United States. Grover Cleveland said, no, I do not want it on May 1st. He pushed it to be September 1st because he desperately wanted to distance the celebrations of the labor unions from the events of the Haymarket Affair in order to not show the efficacy of protesting, even when they are violent. He didn't want to strengthen any socialist or anarchist groups through the observance of the national holiday. And that's actually a pretty powerful statement, considering that there are many days that people use as chants and rallying cries. Remember the 5th of November is a very good example of this. People will rally behind ideas, and Grover Cleveland did not want them rallying behind the idea of a violent protest being successful in an effort to get fair labor laws. United States of America, everybody, land of the free. So, by the way, May Day, May 1st, as a holiday for workers, is actually celebrated in 80 countries. But the United States has it pushed to September 1st so that we don't have some nasty affiliations with violent protests. So, the reason I bring this up is when Steven Crowder makes a point like this.
Their members' tires they'd slash because of bullshit card check voting. See, that's because the Industrial Revolution, unlike the Agricultural Revolution, which preceded it, resulted in an economy with a select few people at the top and then a manual labor class in the factories who were working very long hours just to squeak out a living, sometimes 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Not sometimes. That was the norm. That was the norm. That was the problem. Workers were being exploited. But when Crowder makes a point, starting with, they did these silly, violent things. Slashing tires. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. You shouldn't do that. Our unions... And when he makes a statement about union members slashing tires, he's referring to the Teamsters slash tires. He's referring to this event, okay, where union members were actually heckling and slashing tires and causing issues. He's referring to a singular event and attempting to use that to argue for that being the state of unions across the United States. No. Although it's not outside of the purview of unions historically anyway. But still, when someone like Crowder looks at this situation and then argues, oh no, this is all unions do now. They just slash members' tires. They used to be useful. Well, no, they've always participated in protests. Those protests have always had the capacity to be violent or to include destruction of property. And one union is not representative of any other union. Just as Steven Crowder, as an individual, is not a representative for every other conservative. Some are better, some are worse, though Crowder's a pretty bad one.
Now, notice that was an actual moment in history, unlike the fabricated one today from entitled leftist socialists who bitch that the American dream is more out of reach than ever because they might have to work a double shift at their retail job to pay off their gender studies degree that they think the taxpayer should ultimately subsidize.
And here we have a straw man. A giant, massive, huge straw man. So, I don't know if I have to explain why the statement's a straw man, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway for fun. So, let's see. How many people in the United States are part of unions? $14.7 million. Okay. How many people have gender studies degrees? Let's see. How many people have gender studies degrees? can't find any data on that. Many gender studies are there? Let's see here. I don't actually see anything on numbers for that, but I sincerely doubt that it is anywhere close to 14 million. So this one little isolated person is not representative of a broad group, as Crowder would like to argue. Secondly, the other thing that I have an issue with when I hear something like this is not just that Crowder is using a very awkward straw man to defend his position, but he's also using that to say, oh yeah, look at that silly liberal. They want a gender studies degree, and they think that that should be paid for by the government. Yes. No, it should. 110%. Give me a good argument as to why it shouldn't. Why should education, in any form, that has uses, not be publicly available to the masses? Why should it be barred behind lock and key? Seriously, no, just increase taxes to people a little bit to pay for that education. And while you're at it, could you please also increase the wages of teachers instead of constantly cutting that? Like, if you want to know why we get more stupid Americans, it's because we have an education system that's fundamentally broken and we don't funnel money into it. Please, that would be great. But, oh, aha! I got some numbers. I found some. So, just women's studies in general, not just a field of gender studies, but women's studies. So this encompasses that, plus a couple others. Out of 1.9 million bachelor's degrees awarded in 2014 to 2015, a little over 1,000 degrees were awarded in women's studies. If we take that as a litmus test for the entire year, let's take that and multiply it by 50. We got 50,000. So if we have 50,000 possible people who have these degrees in women's studies, that's considered a useless degree by somebody like Crowder, that is a fraction of a percentage of the United States, and it is a fraction of a percentage of people employed by labor unions or people who happen to be part of labor unions. This really awkward straw man encompasses less than a fraction of a percent of the people that Crowder is attempting to argue against. It is not representative of anyone. Which is strange. But that's the only way Steven Crowder can actually argue his point.
Also, notice that I said manual laborers and not working class. Because the idea that someone who owns that factory, or today someone who owns a business or happens to be an independent contractor, is not working is absurd, insulting, and ironically, anti-intellectual. Think about it. The only difference between a lawyer, a doctor, an investor, or independent business owner, and the working class, as is the current nomenclature, is that the former simply work with their minds instead of their bodies.
Really? So, are you attempting to tell me that somebody who is working class doesn't work with their minds? Hot take, but pretty fucking stupid. Okay, so this idea that somebody who, let's say somebody is working at a McDonald's, right? Let's just take McDonald's as a base example. And Crowder would say that this person's not working with their mind. They're working with their body. Okay. So you mean to say that the manager who is working there actually doesn't work with his mind at all when he's hiring, when he is delegating, when he is doing background checks on people, when he is working on the computer system in order to actually get all the data entered for the day. None of that is working with his mind. All of that is with his body, right? All of that? There's a reason that we say working class. Because we are arguing for people who are not just stupid people who work with their bodies, which seems to be the implication that Crowder is saying. There are people who work with their minds who are still considered working class. Now, there is a nomenclature that we use here. It's the blue-collar versus white-collar distinction. But if you look at working class is the social group consisting of people who are employed for wages, especially in manual or industrial work, but not necessarily. So the social group of people who are employed for wages. That seems to encompass a whole lot of jobs that are not just manual labor. The working class comprises of people who are engaged in waged or salaried labor. Again, especially manual labor, but not necessarily just that. So, could it be that Crowder is... For Crowder to have an opponent he can fight, he has to straw man them into the ground. And for Crowder to have a group that he is going to talk about, he has to straw man that group as well. It seems to me that Steven Crowder, as an individual, can only argue against straw men. Because it seems to be the only thing he's constructing. Constantly. Also, cold loyalty. There's a reason moderators are cussing. I have no problem with cussing on my channel. Cussing is not one of the things that I have an issue with. I have an issue with harassment. I have an issue with slurs, but curse words are not harmful. Ass is not harmful. Fuck is not harmful. Shit is not harmful. An argument can be made somewhat that bitch can be harmful. But by and large, standard curse words are not harmful, so they are not something that I police on my channel. German visitor says, "Say it, sir, as Crowder's lying like a rug." Yeah. No, that's fine.
Does that mean that their work is any less valuable? I thought the left had the corner on intelligentsia. Or does that only apply to modern humanities majors who posit theories and philosophies that needn't yield results in the real world?
Really? Give me just a moment. And where are you? So, John Dewey, who is noted as one of the three, possibly the most prominent father of pragmatism. The philosophy in the United States that has consistently yielded some of the most results, as is its purpose. In fact, actually, pragmatism is one of the things that has led to all of you having computers, because some of the first logical processors were developed directly as a result of the philosophy of pragmatism. Theoretical processors, by the way, that needn't yield results. This was all theory until logical processors were made as machines, and then we got computers. But don't tell Steven Crowder that. John Dewey was a critic of Roosevelt's New Deal from the left. So he was from the left, had a philosophy entirely consistent of yielding results. And this is somebody who Crowder is simply just going to avoid talking about, right? Right? That's what's going to happen here. That's where we are. Because I could, if I wanted to sit here and research, I could go into more philosophers who are on the left side of the political spectrum who have philosophies that yield results. But it's okay, Crowder. It's okay. I have no problem with you lying to your audience. Because Crowder, unlike me, has a team of researchers and video editors at his disposal. He doesn't get to have an excuse for making sloppy mistakes that a 10-second Google search can fix. I say a 10-second Google search, I'm actually looking at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on John Dewey. By the way, fascinating read, considering that the thing is like, how many pages long? This is like a 10-page long paper. What am I talking about? Crowder can't read.
But hey, that just mirrors Marxism to a T. After all, what gives the working class or proletariats the rights to have the government violently seize businesses and means of production from others outside of the fact that the very cerebral work required to create it in the first place is simply not valued in a communist society?
Okay, so let's talk about that one. There's a lot to fucking unpack there. There's a fucking lot to unpack there. So, I don't know if that's Puffalo because I don't know if it's the same John Dewey. I'm uncertain. Though, again, I could do more research and find out. So, the first claim we're going to unpack is Marxism requires the government to violently seize the means of production from incredibly smart capitalists. That's the argument that Crowder's going for. Last I checked, Marx argued that the proletariat should seize the means of production, not the government. The proletariat, the workers, individually. Oh, right, I forgot. Crowder can't make that point, because one of Crowder's points is that the left is anti-gun. Even though the strongest leftists are very pro-gun, because without weapons, how do you seize the means of production? How can you violently seize means of production or violently protest without weaponry? That's Karl Marx's point. Has nothing to do with the government doing it. Like, he actually cannot accurately describe a Marxist, because to accurately describe a Marxist, he would have to describe somebody who his position can't fight against. And I don't want to say I don't understand it, because I get it. I understand. Lying to your audience can net you a lot of money. It can. Crowder's a wonderful example of this. But it's weird to me when, so far, he's constructed several straw men, and then when his point about Marx is brought up, he brings up a point that isn't supported in the Communist Manifesto. But, okay. Sure.
Well, the very cerebral work required to create it in the first place is simply not valued in a communist society.
Actually, it is. It is. It's just the difference here is that instead of, for one, in a communist society, that cerebral work is valid. It's perfectly acceptable. It's just not given as a granted that that person now need be a billionaire. That knowledge, that power gets redistributed afterwards. That does not necessarily mean that that work is not valued. Just like the manual labor of the workers is not undervalued simply because their items can also be redistributed. Well, it is undervalued if you're in a fully capitalist society, I guess, because then you just get minimum wage in many cases, and that's not enough to live off of. But, you know, sure, why not? Also, Paul Bradley says that I am strawmanning. How am I strawmanning Crowder? I'm curious. While you figure that out.
While we're speaking of value, let's go back to the value of time. Again, Today, most Americans are horrified to learn that in the time of the Industrial Revolution, many people were working 12-hour days without breaks. Because in the age of today, the average 34-hour work week, who would ever consider putting themselves through that?
Do you know why we have a 34-hour work week on average, Crowder? Because many businesses, most businesses that have the opportunity to hire workers at full-time would rather hire multiple part-time workers as opposed to one full-time worker. That's not workers being lazy, which seems to be his case. That is businesses exploiting their workers and realizing that if you have one worker at 30 hours a week and another worker at 30 hours a week, and neither of these have to get benefits because they're both at 30 hours a week and they're not full-time workers, it is cheaper to have these two workers producing 60 hours of work than one full-time 40-hour-a-week worker whom you have to pay benefits towards as well, and someday have to pay a pension for. That one worker is more expensive than these two. That's why you have those work weeks, Crowder. It's exploitation of workers. This is very, very, very obvious to anyone with even a cursory knowledge of what it is like to exist in the workforce. Also, yeah, no, Walmart is a wonderful example of this. Walmart, Kroger at least has a union. No, Walmart is a really good example of this. I used to work at Walmart years ago. It was the third job I ever had. Walmart has a practice where if you work, when I worked, it was if you had 12 weeks total of 38 hours or more, they had to essentially force you into full-time. You were then a full-time worker. So what they did is they would make it so where at the 11th week, they would cut you off. Because you had to have 12 consecutive weeks. And on the 11th week, they would just drop you down to 5 hours, 6 hours, 20 maybe. It doesn't fucking matter if you actually needed any of that money to support your family. They couldn't dare risk you getting into full-time. So, yeah. So Fire Rises says, are you a hybrid Destiny Vosh copycat? Well, I don't like Destiny terribly much. I've seen like 2 of his debates, and I liked the debates that I've seen him in, but that's about it. I don't really care for him outside of that. And as far as Vosh, I mean, Vosh is my friend, but I've been doing the YouTube thing longer than Vosh. So, no. I didn't know about Destiny until after I knew about Vosh as well. So again, it's very hard for me to be a hybrid copycat of someone who I have been on YouTube longer than. But you know, who cares, right?
And that's where we come full circle. Today, while you enjoy your melanoma and corn beer, there are still plenty of people who work those kinds of hours without the benefit of a labor union.
Yeah. So we need more labor unions in order to make sure that people can work hours that can sustain their families. Because some of the benefits of labor unions are the ability to negotiate these things with your employer as a group, as opposed to as an individual. Okay. Trickster, Walmart. Meanwhile, Walmart only opens 1 or 2 lanes during busy times, so customers have to use the self-checkout. No discounts for doing their job. So, to be fair, though, I actually am okay with the self-checkout thing because I am okay with a lot of jobs being moved into automation. Granted, I am A, okay with automation, and B, I would prefer if, as a result of that automation, we ended up getting a few more programs that were tax-funded that could help people who do lose their jobs from automation. But I think an argument that says that we have to keep jobs when automation comes in to take over is an argument that were we to apply it at any point in history, we would then have to say, well, we can't have factories. These individual jobs are things that people need to protect themselves and to put money on the table. So don't automate these things in factories. That's bad. Don't ever do that. Except that's an awkward point. So anytime I hear a point against automation, it's weird to me, because if I apply it anywhere historically, we basically get to the point where you realize that without automation, you couldn't have typed out that message on a computer. Okay. Anywho. But no, by and large, I don't like self-checkout, personally. Automation as a concept I like, but self-checkout I don't like doing. Especially considering that, like, we're getting groceries for 4 people, and a lot of that involves, like, soda and milk and all kinds of heavy stuff that I really would prefer the checkout person double bagging for me instead of me doing, but that's just me. Kadama says, we're all Amish now. Fair enough.
They're called business owners. You know, the people you'll inevitably find time to vilify today between your hot dog eating contest and waking up in a boozy puddle of your own filth on some stranger's lawn.
What? Where did that point even come from?
Because while you were taking the day off to play drunken lawn darts, they were likely working to make sure that the lights are still on.
Unless A, you're working at a job that will not give you Labor Day off. B, you're working at a job where everybody takes Labor Day off. And C, if you're a business owner, working on holidays is your choice. I'm sorry, but it's your choice. Now, granted, it may only be your choice insofar as you have the ability to choose whether or not you want to do it, but you have to make money, so you can't actually choose one way or another, much like the choice of whether or not to do something with a gun to your head isn't truly a choice. So I do understand there's an argument there, much like I don't really get a choice on whether or not I want to make videos. If I don't want to make videos one week, I can do that once, but I can't do it any more than that, because then I don't actually have videos coming out that will produce ad revenue that will allow me to, you know, eat or live. Those are things that I'm not going to be able to do if I don't work. So yeah, working is a choice for me if I want to be able to pay my mortgage.
Someone has to make sure that you can find your way when you tardily stumble in on Tuesday looking for the Alka-Seltzer. Listen, enjoy your silly day off and have fun.
He says, unironically, in a robe, in a chair, drinking from a mug. What's funny is if you look at the comment section of this video, even Steven Crowder's fans are like, dude, you posted cringe, bro.
My only point here is that Labor Day just highlights the gross mass generalizations that come from the left in the 21st century.
All right. So let's go ahead and take, first of all, mass generalizations. Very funny coming from somebody who argued that the people who are arguing against his position largely are people with gender studies degrees, even though they comprise less than 1% of the field of bachelor's degrees in academia. And we don't even have numbers on whether or not they're in labor unions. Very, very weird for me to hear from someone like Steven Crowder that overgeneralizations are an issue when overgeneralizations are literally his shtick. But that's fine. That's fine. What I don't get, let me repeat his point.
Generalizations that come from the left in the 20s.
Okay, yeah, that's. I remember where I was going to go now. So his argument is Labor Day is a silly holiday. Okay, cool, that's fine. I'm willing to accept that if you're willing to also accept that holidays as a concept are silly. I'm perfectly fine with accepting the premise Labor Day is a silly holiday, if we can also extend that to all holidays, because Labor Day is a celebration of the effects of labor unions and how they've improved the lives of workers across the nation. So let's talk about Christmas. Or let's talk about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, you know, the celebration of the colonialization of the United States. A celebration that we do every year and have a lot of push towards, even though there are several Native Americans who would look at that and realize that this is a celebration of the forceful and violent taking of their homeland. But we celebrate that one. That one's fine. Or Christmas, where we celebrate it has been thoroughly secularized, but if we go to its base here in the States, we are celebrating a holiday for a religion that 60% at least of the United States follows. At least. But not everybody. So yeah, for at least 40% of the U.S., it might be considered silly. If my memory of those numbers is true, I could be wrong. There are Christians who don't celebrate Christmas because they find it as blasphemous as well. So, if we're willing to extend the premise, this holiday is silly because X reason that I don't agree with, cool. Then we can go ahead and take that to Thanksgiving. We can go ahead and take that to Christmas. And you know what? That will basically shred most of our holidays out, except maybe like the 4th of July. At least here in the States. But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Riverstick says, don't touch my goddamn Thanksgiving. It's my excuse to put on 30 pounds every year. Fair enough. No, it's just, it's a very strange point, because when you take those points and you actually apply them to anywhere else, Steven Crowder would give you a special pleading case as to why that doesn't apply to something else, which is frustrating to say the least.
21st century. Even though they accuse the right of being racist at every opportunity possible, it is they who exclusively separate and view people through the prism of sex, race, age, and yes, socioeconomic status. This classism is just another way to...
Classism. No. Classism is to discriminate against people who are in various classes. If we're talking about racial, social, economic, these are various areas where we can divide people, and if we actually apply prejudices on them at that point, yes, that is a type of classism or a type of racism. Merely looking at statistics and then figuring out what the purpose of those statistics is not in and of itself racist. It's what you do with those stats. So, as an example, I made a video on the 13% of the population, or despite making up 30% of the population, African Americans are responsible for 50% of the violent crime meme. That meme that is used essentially as either a trolley copy pasta or as a freaking racist dog whistle. It's equally both. It's used for both pretty consistently. So we take a stat like that. What does that stat tell someone like Crowder? Well, it's going to tell somebody like Crowder that, oh, well, there's something innate about being an African American that gives you a proclivity to violent crime. But what does it tell someone who's sat down and researched the reasons behind this? Well, it tells us that there's actually prejudices in our society. It tells us that there's a socioeconomic divide that has not actually been bridged entirely in our society. And BT dubs, if anybody wants sources for this, please go to the video that I did on this where I linked, I think, 8 different sources on this, many of them in academic journals, where I've actually gone through the numbers on all this shit and found that, yeah, that's about the number that we would expect, given the prejudices that exist in the United States. Data's a wonderful thing. Facts don't care about feelings. Data is a very wonderful thing that we can use in order to actually figure out what predictions could come from things.
Divide and conquer, turn brother against brother, and to make you think that you're somehow owed something that...
Wait, divide and conquer, turn brother against brother, really? So, okay. More right-leaning ideologies typically lead to individualism, whereas more left-leaning ideologies typically lead to collectivism. Divide and conquer is not a strategy of the left in the same way it is for the right. But he would know that if he knew anything about the left, wouldn't he? Isn't that something Crowder would know? I mean, he brought up Marx before, and he was notoriously wrong on that, but, you know, that seems like something that he would understand, at the very least. Also, Mario says, apparently biology has nothing to do with your behavior now. Can you please tell me the biological aspect of someone who is black that gives them a proclivity towards violence? Please. Let me know. Come on, Mario. You can do this. Let me know. What is the you seem to know because you have an opinion on this. So what is the biological component that we can isolate that, according to you, gives black people a proclivity towards violence? I'll wait. The warrior gene. Could you please link me a study on that? An actual academic source. Because the warrior gene has been thoroughly debunked for the past couple decades. So go ahead and provide me a study. I'll gladly turn this into a Steven Crowder and this really easily debunked biological study video instead and save the Hunter Avallone thing for something else. I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's go ahead. You have this information. Obviously, you've got a source. You had to have. What is debunked about that? It's a well-established biological aspect of all... Wait, it's a well-established biological aspect of all humans. All humans, you say. So all humans are black? Because you said that... Premise A, black people have a proclivity towards violence because of biology. Premise B, the biological aspect that causes people to have a proclivity towards violence is the warrior gene. Premise C, all humans have the warrior gene. The only conclusion we can get from this is that all humans are black. That's the conclusion to that. More so than other populations. Can you please give me data that shows that black people have actually had a higher correlation for a warrior gene in their populace over white people? This is a place of facts. This is a place of data. This is a place of sourcing your claims. So please, do so. But you say warrior genes are well established. Let's see here. Ooh, awkward. As of 2018, we have an article called Chasing the Warrior Gene and Why It Looks Like a Dud So Far from the Genetic Literacy Project. MAOA, the gene that has become known as the warrior gene, provides instructions for the production of an enzyme called monoamine oxidase A. It is responsible for breaking down monoamine neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and these neurotransmitters play an important role in the regulation of mood and emotion, sympathetic nervous system function, immune response, and so on. Landmark research was published in 2002, showing that maltreatment during childhood was associated with antisocial behaviors and violent crimes. But the impact of childhood maltreatment was significantly magnified in those who had low MAO activity. This is where a lot of this has begun. It's led to the prevalence of one of the main warrior gene variants, the 3R variant. It is found approximately 50% of MAORI males, 58% of African American males, 34% of European males, 61% of Taiwanese males, and 56% of Chinese males. That seems to be a pretty even spread, all things considered. With these kinds of numbers, one might expect a higher rate of violence and criminality, but in reality, this is not the case. Most individuals with the 3R mutation are law-abiding citizens. MAOA researchers in China concluded that the genes were found to play an almost negligible role in aggressive behavior compared to environmental factors such as poor social support, physical abuse, and instability at home. And though genes do indeed influence behavior and differences in behavior between individuals, we are nowhere close to understanding exactly how they do so and under what conditions. The general consensus by scientists is that the behaviors we enact arise from incredibly complex interactions between our genes and our environments. It is inconclusive currently as to what actual role the MAOA gene plays in violent behavior. Well understood scientific fact, Mario. well-documented scientific research, Mario. This is research as of 2018. This is very recent. Well-established, Mario. That's where we are. Can we please get an H in chat for the absolute failure of racist studies? If possible. That is a lot of H's. In fact, actually, one would say that it's very H. One could also say that it's very H again. I don't actually have one that's not very H. I don't have any variations of that. But it's okay. I have no problem when somebody brings something racist into my chat, because 99.9% of the time, it is incredibly easy to debunk, dismantle, and destroy. Because again, this is a place of facts. This is a place of data. There's a reason that my channel is a skeptic channel. Researching data is what I do.
Only Big Brother can provide. So,
only Big Brother can provide. Hold on. We're back on Steven Crowder. We're back on Steven Crowder. So only Big Brother can provide. That's going to be his little, like, linchpin that he's going to hold on to for a second. Or that I'm going to hold him on to because I have the power of the pause button. Also, Cyclable says, "That's right, sir, as you sit there with a straight face after making that pun." Fair enough. I'm going to back up a little bit so we have some more context.
Turn brother against brother, and to make you think that you're somehow owed something that only Big Brother can provide. So,
has Steven Crowder ever been introduced to an anarcho-communist? Or an anarcho-socialist? Or an anarcho-syndicalist? Has he ever met any of these people? Because it occurs to me that if he had Crowder met any of these people, then he would know that there are incredibly left-leaning people, violently left-leaning people, who don't like the government too. What a weird world we live in. But Crowder doesn't want to actually agree with somebody on the left. That would be bad. They don't have those people in super wealthy suburbs, sir. Fair enough. Kadama says he's a fucking ANCAP. ANCAPs are a meme. Sorry, the capitalism capitalism requires a hierarchy, a very arbitrary hierarchy to function, and an anarchist is against arbitrary hierarchies. So the position of an ANCAP is one that will routinely confuse me. Mario, the paper that I just went through was from 2018. Hold on. Do. 19. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Allow me a second. I'll have to grab the actual articles for later and pull those up. But anywho. Woo.
So, enjoy your Labor Day, and enjoy your weekends off and 8-hour work days for that matter. And yes, like you'll see in all the social media trends today, you can in part thank a union for those luxuries.
You can almost entirely thank a union for those luxuries. They had the numbers to politically organize in order to grant those luxuries. Okay. Mario, I have a question. So why is it that Taiwanese people actually have the MAOA gene R3 more so than black people? Why is it that Chinese people have it more so than black people? Is there a reason for that? Are they more violent? Sorry, Chinese males actually have it 2% less, so it's practically identical. Sorry. You know, Taiwanese people and Chinese people. Is there a reason? Or is it just black people? Is this just a thing where you get a special pleat on that? Anywho.
Just know that they're afforded to you because of someone who enjoys none of.
Wait, they don't? Not that I've seen? Not that you've seen. My dude, I would like to provide you with a research paper. 1 year sooner than yours, July 31st, 2014, is an essay. It's a long essay. Take a little bit of reading. But here you go. Have fun. Enjoy. A little bit of reading. Just a little bit of reading. So go ahead and read that and get the biological racism out of my fucking chat.
Of them. Someone who doesn't have a standard weekend and has likely gone years of working tireless hours and borrowing.
Zarok Chaos donated $5. Do all fascists believe the white race is the best, or can there be other races? So it's awkward. So if you get somebody like Stephen Molyneux, they'll say that like they're not a white supremacist because Asian people are apparently better than white people, and therefore they're not a white supremacist. So like, yeah, that whole liking other races thing does happen with some of these people. But as far as a broad answer to that, I don't know. I couldn't actually give you a straight answer on that. MEI Pikachu, I'm required to read the Communist Manifesto for my community college English class. I probably won't understand it, just thought I'd share. I mean, reading's good. I have to read a bunch of Jordan Peterson material for a debate. That's going to be suffering.
Money just to make payroll. So, okay, for your time off, benefits, and silly little end of summer holiday, thank a union. As for your job and the ability to provide for you and yours, thank a business owner.
For the ability to provide for you and yours, thank a business owner. Hold on, wait a minute. So you're telling me that your point in the beginning of the video was that workers had to scrape by with their 12-hour work weeks. But Now they can afford more living wages on a 8-hour work week. Thank your boss for that. No, the boss was the one exploiting them the entire fucking time. You don't have to thank your boss. You're trading with your boss. You're trading your hours for wages with your boss. You don't need thank your boss. And Pikachu says, anything I should know about it going in? Honestly, there's nothing you should know about it going in, because for me to argue there's anything you should know about it going in would automatically poison the well. I would rather you just read unfiltered and come to your own conclusions afterwards. That's something I would much rather be. Vince says, I'd be a business owner if capitalism didn't fuck me up the ass to the point that I live in existential limbo. Cy Centra says, for $2, Steven post-cringe, bro. Nathaniel Esposito for $4.99, the effing warrior gene. That sounds like something out of the 1800s. And then Shallow Shy says, MAOA's effectiveness is multiplied by melanin, duh. Boop.
Hey, if you like this video, subscribe or hit the notification bell. I think...
Or not. Or how about we don't? Remember, thank a business owner. Also, please buy my mug club. Please do. He couldn't be a millionaire without it. So that was 5 minutes of Steven Crowder just shitting on the poor. That's awkward. That's really awkward. MEI Pikachu says, I have Spinell's song stuck in my head. I'm sorry. The Spinell's fight song in the beginning of the Steven Universe movie slaps. I can't I can't argue against that. I'm sorry. You know, his video was only 5 minutes long. Well, we also had the deconstruction of the warrior gene nonsense halfway in there. That's the thing we wanted to do. Okay. With that said, we're going to put a cap on that at the 1 minute and 10 mark and get into the next video that we have to do. Because I also wanted to tackle Hunter Avallone. Because this one's silly. This one's funny. Hunter gets really mad at...
Greetings.
Oh, no. Hunter gets really, really mad about something, and it tickles my pickle. It really does. Also, can we just point out that these freeze frames are wonderful? Like, I'm sorry, but some freeze frames are just great. Puff says, can you discuss the myth of the job creator? At some point I might, but I'd have to do a little more research because I'm largely uninformed on the positives and negatives of someone like a Nikola Tesla or something being a job creator. I don't actually know enough on that subject to talk on it, but I will eventually as I do more reading.
Greetings, boys, girls, and...
Oh, yeah, I should probably set the playback speed to normal, huh? There we go.
Greetings, boys, girls, and other...
Boys, girls, and other. That's his joke. Everybody who's an NB in the chat, laugh. This is the arbitrary time that Hunter had a funny joke that everybody should laugh at. Right? Okay, we'll continue.
To a brand new video. Now, I'm not sure if you guys remember this or not, but a few years ago, I did a video on California being a liberal hellhole. And in this video, I talked about how California was lowering the penalty for knowingly spreading AIDS. It's now...
And I covered that. And the history behind that is wonderful. So, for those who like a quick history lesson, in California, knowingly spreading AIDS was considered a criminal offense. It came with a very massive felony charge. It got dropped to a misdemeanor. And here's the reasons why. The spreading of AIDS actually increased because of the felony charge. Because the crime was not spreading AIDS. The crime was knowingly spreading AIDS. Which means if you did not know, you couldn't be charged. How you would know is by getting tested. To get tested and then spreading AIDS afterwards would give you a felony offense. So the obvious way to the obvious way to avoid this negative effect was to not get tested. Because then there was no paper trail saying that you ever knew that you had AIDS. So what did they do to fix this? Well, they lowered the penalty for knowingly spreading AIDS to a misdemeanor. One, it makes sense considering that AIDS is much more treatable now than when it was considered a felony. And two, by lowering that, the incentive to get tested increases. Because now, if you knowingly spread, it's only a misdemeanor compared to a felony. It is something that allows you to get tested without screwing yourself out of potentially getting jailed or getting sent to prison for a felony offense. But that's fine. It's really weird when Hunter does shit like this. Because a lot like the other videos that I've covered on Hunter, I would think that he should know better. When I did the video on abortion with Hunter, it seemed like he really, really should have known better with a lot of his numbers. Like, this thing increases by 120%. Okay, cool, but if our starting percent is 0.5, then you've increased us to a total of like 1 point something. That number is still negligible. I feel like Hunter knows these things and deliberately says to his audience what he wants them to hear. But I also recognize that I prefer granting people charity where I can. So I'm going to go ahead and go with I don't know if he knows. Never attribute to malice what you can instead attribute to stupidity. And never attribute to stupidity what you can attribute to ignorance. I'm going to go ahead and go with ignorance as the most charitable thought. Okay, continuing on.
Now just a few years later, and apparently AIDS have been spreading like wildfire.
Source? Source, please. Do 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 do. Do do do. Do do do. Do do do. I'm trying to actually find the numbers here. There's a higher sexually transmitted disease rate, but that doesn't specifically mean AIDS. Although those numbers are incredibly low compared to what they were. Apparently in the 40s and 50s, the rates per 100,000 people were about 400. 400 STIs per 100,000 people. Whereas now the rates are somewhere between like 25 and 50 per 100,000 people. But yeah, no, spreading like wildfire. It's spreading like wildfire. I'm sorry, it's definitely happening. It's definitely, totally happening.
California is definitely ahead of all the other 49 states. In retardation, of course. Every time I think that California has reached its maximum capacity for stupidity,
That's how I feel about every Hunter Avallone video I watch. Every time that I think he's reached his maximum capacity for stupidity, it gets worse. It wasn't the Spaghetti Sworsham one. No, it was the one, the thumbnail will actually have Hunter and his girlfriend in it.
they do something to outdo the last stupid thing they did. It's kind of a miracle. So
Stupid stray. No, it is not okay for punching somebody for using the R slur, or really any slur. My personal thought process is reciprocal action. If somebody espouses a rhetoric that will lead to violence, or they are themselves violent, then sure. That's not me advocating for violence. That's just me saying that if somebody punches you in the face, defend yourself. But if somebody just uses a slur, yeah, it's offensive. Yeah, it's hurtful. Yeah, it's bad. But don't punch them for it. That is not an offense that is worth punching someone over.
So much so, I'm starting to believe in God, or completely doubt the existence of God. Not really sure. But it's true, California is known for its over-the-top push for all things progressive, even if it's to the point that it really no longer makes logical or reasonable sense. Let's just
Except the things that you've pointed out that you have an issue with California do make logical, reasonable sense. This might not be intuitive. But intuition isn't logic and reason. There's this awkward idea for people like Hunter Avallone and No Bullshit especially, that intuition, their gut reaction, is like the magical silver bullet. Everything that falls into what feels right for their intuition is factually correct, and things that don't fall into their area of intuition is factually incorrect, and therefore not logical. No.
Just say if this was a competition, California would have won a gold medal in the Special Olympics. I'm about to read you this article, and I want you to tell me, has California finally gone too far? California City will remove gender terms including manhole and man-made from municipal code. Well,
Yeah. And do you want to know what it takes to change municipal code? Like logistically? Logistically, all it takes is Control F, Control V on a PDF document. That's not very hard. That's a 5-minute job.
Well, this is just great. If it's no longer going to be called a manhole, then where am I supposed to find a place to jump when I'm ready to kiss this god-awful world goodbye?
But see, here's the problem, Hunter, my friend. You can still use the word manhole. Nobody's stopping you. You can use it in common parlance. Nothing wrong with that. This is about changing legalese. Something you will never use. But you're getting upset about that. You're getting upset about legalese. Something that will never affect you in your life at all. We could call it a smiggity smort. Municipal code for manhole is now smiggity smort. And you get to call it a manhole all day. Nothing changes. Literally nothing in your life changes. At all. But, you know, it makes Hunter upset, so.
This is a pretty progressive move. I mean, how many times have you been walking down the street with your gender non-binary friend, and then suddenly they see manhole ahead, and they get real triggered?
So, like, I don't want to comment on the unironic use of triggered outside of its medical terminology, because he already used the R slur outside of its medical terminology. So, like, I don't need to comment on that. That's not the important part here. The important part here is how upset Hunter is getting over something that will never affect him in his life, but then he constructs a hypothetical scenario about two people getting upset about something that ultimately never affects their lives. Okay.
Gender-inclusive restrooms have become more and more common across the country. Now the city of Berkeley is taking it a step further.
Yeah, you're reading from a news article. The news article is going to be using inflammatory rhetoric. That is the purpose of the news. The news needs to be read in order for people to subscribe or people to do anything in order to in order to actually like make money. You're pulling from there. This is the same thing that No Bullshit does. Where like he looks at the news article and goes, "This is my opinion on this thing. This thing is very important to me." But at the end of the day, the news article is not an accurate representation of reality. It's reporting on reality. You're reporting on a report on reality. Have you ever played a game of telephone before? Because if you played a game of telephone, you understand how a message can actually get disturbed and destroyed the further down the line you go.
Yeah, leave it towards the city of Berkeley to take yet another stride towards ultimate stupidity. The city is removing gender-specific words in its municipal code.
Again, a 5-minute job that takes you looking at even a 400-word PDF document. Control F, Control V, Control F, Control V. You get a list of the words that you have and a list of the words that are replacing them. And you start one by one. Control F, manhole. Then copy the word, whatever word they decide to replace it with, and then or sewer access, whatever the hell they want to call it, and then you just paste that into each and every individual instance of manhole. Take you about a minute for each word. $600 to pay the one guy to do it for the 5 minutes of work he's going to have to do. I'm probably being exaggerating. If it's 400 or 300 pages of text he's having to go through, it could take a few hours. But again, $600. That's nothing. That costs nothing to a city. If we do this in realms of taxes, right? The population of California. In terms of how much impact this actually has. The population of California is 39.56 million. Now, out of 35.56 million people, do you think that any of them are going to feel the percentage of their tax dollars that are being pulled for this? Any of them. Any of them at all. Because that means that every person is paying 0.0000001 pennies. It's something like that. Right? If you lost that today, it wouldn't affect you. It would never affect you. But, you know, it has to affect Hunter somehow.
It will cost the city about $600 to make the changes. Now I know what you're thinking. $600, it's not really that much money. And you're right, it's really not that much money. But I don't care if it costs $600, $6,000, or $60,000.
Actually, no, you do care, Hunter. I'm going to posit a scenario. Let's say that they said that this overtaking, right? Reductio ad absurdum. This is the reason the reductio ad absurdum is a functional thing as a logical tool. If it costed $60 million, Hunter would bitch. Hunter would complain. $60 million? That's $20 million and there are people. That means everybody's got to give up like $2. That's bad. Except the money doesn't matter. He would definitely be making this point if it costed $60 million. $600 doesn't matter, so he has to say it's the principle that matters. There is no fucking principle. You constructed one just so you could artificially get angry and your audience could laugh and clap at you.
It's the concept behind this change that's completely illogical, and they try to claim that it's to help transgender people, but it doesn't even do that.
Do they? Do they claim that it's to help transgender people? Hold on. No, I'm not seeing anything on that. I'm not saying that's not the case. I recognize that we paused on an awkward frame. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I will say that, again, transgender people would largely be unaffected by this, except in legal cases, in which case they would be very fucking affected by this. While Hunter is never going to be affected by this whatsoever, legal case or otherwise. So, I don't know if this is really what's going on here. I have Hunter's word to go on. That's about it.
So let's continue looking through the article. I have not contracted AIDS yet, so let's continue. The Berkeley City Council unanimously passed the measure to replace more than 24 commonly used terms on Tuesday. It will
24 instances of hitting Control A and of hitting Control F and Control V. That's real inconvenient.
switch words like he and she to they and them in the city code. Manholes will be changed to maintenance holes, and references to man-made will be changed to artificial.
So, actually, there is a good reason to do this, all things considered. And it's not to help trans people. While, yes, it will inadvertently do that in a sense, in a legal sense, when you are writing documents, there are so many times where you have to say things like, this word will mean this going forward in the document. So being able to shorthand those things down actually does help. So changing he and she to they as a default helps. And again, having that as a default for legal instances would also help as well, because, say, for instance, a trans person does have to go and talk in a courtroom, and the documents on them say they, and that is the terminology that's used there. That prevents dysphoria. Seems like a win. I mean, I'm sorry that that's not a thing that you ever have to experience, Hunter. It's not a thing I ever have to experience, but I can understand that there are some situations where it might be uncomfortable. And $600 and a handful of copy pastas in order to change these things doesn't seem like that big a deal.
Let me just stop it right here. You guys realize that man-made isn't actually a gender-specific word, right? You realize that man-made historically just means human-made.
Really? So it doesn't necessarily mean human-made, but you could actually pull the argument that it does. So according to the online etymology dictionary, man-made or made or contrived by man was a term from 1718. Its early use typically was used at institutions, and it was used as something to be juxtaposed against what is considered natural or divine. So anything that's considered of textile fibers, foodstuffs, etc. So it's not necessarily something that was ever gendered terribly much. The idea that it strictly stood for human-made is a bit weird because the etymology doesn't seem to show that. But I do agree that it is not entirely a gendered term.
Or are you guys so stupid you literally just see the word man and you think it must be changed?
No, that's not what's happening here. And again, this is not something that will ever affect you at all anyway, so why are you angry?
I mean, it says that the city is removing gender-specific words in its municipal code. But man-made, manhole, these are not gender-specific terms.
Actually, What about manhole? Let's look at this one. What is the origin of manhole? A hole or opening in a floor or pavement through which a person may pass to gain access to certain parts for cleaning or repairing. Combination of man plus hole. And what about this one? The round cover. Now, so again, it's not a strictly gendered term, but I think he's going to make the argument that it stands for maintenance hole.
I need to know right now, who is running this place? Anyone? What? Is it like Justin Trudeau? Seriously, guys, you know that if a word just happens to have man in it, it doesn't mean that it's gender specific. I highly doubt that any...
I'm actually glad that he's not making the point, because the point that I've actually heard in response to the manhole thing is that it's short for maintenance hole, which the etymology does not actually show at all in any way, shape, or form for the last 200+ years. But I will say this. At the end of the day, this is a changing in municipal code. This is not saying that Hunter has to change his language. This is not saying that anybody has to change their language. Everybody can still use the exact same language they're used to using. There's nothing wrong with that. Municipal code is strictly about what documentation we write when we're dealing with legalese in that area. This is not the same thing as saying that, oh, we're banning these words. We're making the city gender neutral. That's not what that means. It's about legal documentation. That's it. It extends no further than that. And that affects no one past that.
Non-binary or gender-neutral person would get offended by the term manhole or man...
This isn't about people getting offended, dude. It's not. It's about legal convenience. But you wouldn't know that.
Because the man in each word is not referring to man in a gendered context. Gender-specific references to job titles like policeman and craftsman will also be changed in the code to police officer and craftspeople. See, you say you're going to change it to craftspeople, but what if someone's otherkin? What?
The difference between gendered language and dealing with otherkin as a concept is one we've accepted as a society. The other one we have not. We have research that backs up the acceptance of genders, non-binary otherwise. We don't have that for otherkin. Which means that because we have this research, there's legal precedent for one, but there's not legal precedent for another. These two things are not comparable. Sysernka, this guy's a fucking walnut.
What if they don't identify as a person? It's a little discriminatory, don't you think, California? Terms like fraternity or sorority will be changed.
Mario, a quote mine from the article that I linked is not enough. You're going to have to actually point out the context in which that was there. Arguing with the same methods that creationists use is not going to help you.
To collegiate Greek system residents. So is anyone here part of a sorority or a fraternity or anything? Excuse me, bigot. I think what you mean is anyone part of a collegiate Greek system residence.
So, sorority or fraternity or anything. 13 syllables. Collegiate Greek system residence. 10 syllables. Wait. Those are the words that you used. One of these things is arguably more convenient than the other. It's fewer syllables. We could also short it to collegiate residence. We could. That's weird, Hunter. That's weird.
Previous terms like sorority.
And yes, Abby, he did just compare transgender people to otherkin to make a joke.
and fraternity are just a bit too problematic. You're not woke, you're just stupid.
Mario, this is the thing with correlation and causation. There's a correlation between that gene and violence. There is not a causal link that has been established. You would know this. You've read the article.
Other terms that will be changed include pregnant woman or women. It will be switched to pregnant employees. Brothers and sisters will be switched to sibling.
Pregnant employees. Yes, because trans men can get pregnant. Yeah, they still have all the parts down there in many cases. So, yeah, that makes sense. This is like future-proofing. This is just future-proofing. Why is Hunter getting angry at future-proofing in legal code? 2, how is this code ever going to affect him? I don't get it. Also, I see we have Jeff Holiday in the chat. How's it going?
This is just so over the top. It doesn't really help genuine gender-neutral people who use gender non-conforming language and
Tony says don't Google manhole without your adult filter on. Fair enough.
Lastly, it's just a waste of time and money, especially considering the fact that California has a skyrocketing crime.
Ah! Whataboutism? Which stuff of yours is getting blocked, Mario? I haven't actually seen any of your stuff getting blocked. In fact, I see none of your messages as blocked. All of your messages seem to have come through on my end, and I can actually... I can see them. Why would trans men want to... It's not about wanting. Also, being... So, there's... Being pregnant could cause dysphoria for a trans man, but if they happen to want a child and still have all the parts that allow them to do so, why the fuck does it matter? You don't get the chance to police their identity. Yeah.
And homelessness problem, but instead of focusing their efforts on these actual jarring issues, they're actually wasting time trying to change the city code to not have gender-specific language.
You're right. Allow me to construct your point in another form, Hunter. Why are they so worried about researching a cure for the common cold? Or just ways for people to cope with the cold? We already have cold medicine. But, let's see here. The common cold... But research is still being conducted into the common cold. In fact, actually, as of June 25th of 2018, Harvard.edu actually has an article on this. So research is still being done into the common cold. But why would we spend time and money on researching the common cold? Something that we largely don't deal with that much outside of suffering a little bit. I say this for a majority of the population. I literally live with somebody who's immunocompromised, so I recognize that it can get worse. I'm not unaware of that fact. But it's still considered a minor issue compared to something like cancer. Why are we using money, resources, and time to research the common cold when we could be researching cancer? Why are we not funneling all that into cancer research? Except that's a dumb argument. We can research both at the same time. We can tackle both of these things at the same time, especially when one takes 5 minutes with a Control-F and Control-V thing. Takes almost no time. Control-F, replace all, Control-V. Boom. Done. You fixed the entire document. The municipal code is saved. Takes no time. $600, that's nothing in taxpayer dollars. That costs nothing. This is a very dumb argument.
It just seems ridiculous, and it also seems like you should get your priorities straight. Councilman Rejo Robinson, a 23-year-old recent graduate of the University of California at Berkeley, sponsored the ordinance. He tweeted in part, "There is power in language. It's a small move, but it matters." This kind of annoys me because I don't like the fact that he's using a truth to sort of justify the idiocy behind the decision for this measure. First of all,
Justifying idiocy. Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on right now. Though, I don't know if it's coming from the politicians in California, at least in this particular instance.
he's right. There is power in language. Words hold power. Words hold meaning. That all makes sense to me. But there is not power in language like manhole or man-made, when in reality, it simply means human-made. You're just viewing man as an extremely gender-specific term so that you can change it and then look woke. You're viewing...
It's not about looking woke. It's literally just future-proofing your legal documents. Let me give you an example of what happens when you don't future-proof your legal documents. In Florida, it is currently illegal to reside with someone of the opposite sex for any amount of time. That is considered illegal. You can actually get the police called on somebody for that if they are not married. That's a thing you can do. That is inarguably an incredibly archaic law. It was not future-proofed. It's not. There was no thought put into potential changing times of any kind. This is a thing that can happen when you actually construct laws that do not take into account the fact that tides of change exist. That's an awkward thing to think about, right? Let's also ignore the fact that there are several states where there's still sodomy laws. This is, again, a thing that wasn't thought about. This is why when you're looking at legal things like municipal codes, the idea that future-proofing them may actually serve a purpose if it doesn't take any amount of money. Again, $600 is nothing for taxes. Why not? There's not a good argument why not. You can say, oh, that's silly. Well, that's fine. We'll call it silly and just fucking do it anyway.
This entire issue in such a two-dimensional, shallow viewpoint. It's like you just see the word man and it just lights up red and you're like, it's gender.
It's like when Hunter sees the word liberal and it lights up red. It's the same thing. He's getting mad at people for the thing he does. Someone sees a gendered term and he says they get mad. Hunter sees the word liberal, and he gets really upset. Hunter says that people see the word man, and they get upset even though it won't affect their lives. He sees a gendered neutral term being put into legal code that will never affect him, and he gets upset. He's doing the same thing. That's weird. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that.
Gender specific. We need to get rid of it. Kind of ticks me off that he's using a truth that there's power in language because he's right in that aspect, but the context in which he's using this truth is completely false. In recent years, broadening society...
Is it, though? I mean, hell, Aura Echoes, Saf Wolf, actually sent me an article. The New York Times showed that manholes actually did get this change. In the 90s, 2 decades ago, this happened. 2 decades. This is not some new, woke, liberal thing. This is a thing that's happened in other states fucking years ago. I think before Hunter was born. I guess it really didn't upset him that much then, right?
Societal awareness of transgender and gender nonconforming identities has brought light to the importance of non-binary gender inclusivity. One small step for Z, one giant leap for all of people-kind. This right here really jingles my jollies. I don't like the fact that this city council has decided to make a completely stupid...
Robert Kirby in the chat, the purpose of being trans is not to identify as the opposite gender. The purpose of being trans is identifying not as cis. Trans is not short for transition. It does not mean that you have changed into the opposite gender. Trans etymologically stands for beyond or different from. So different from cisgender would be transgender. That's the etymology of the term. Look it up.
Stupid decision, but then they're justifying it by bringing in transgender people. It essentially seems like they're trying to earn some woke brownie points, but they're using transgender.
Were they looking for woke brownie points in New York? Okay. Sure.
Gender people as political pawns. As far as my understanding goes, there are no transgender people or gender non-conforming people
Hold on.
who even play.
I just want to point out, people being used as political pawns is Hunter's point. He says unironically as the conservative political pawn.
Played a part in making this decision. It was just a bunch of cis people who decided they wanted to look woke, and they're like, but look, we're helping transgender people. First of all, this doesn't help transgender people. It's like doing the bare minimum and then just patting yourself on the back because you're oh so woke. Transgender people, they're discriminated against.
Wait, so why was it done in the 90s for New York then? Why did that happen? Was it for the same reasons? I know this is a weird one, Hunter. I'm seeing a lot of straws being grasped at, and it feels strange.
Every day. They're made fun of by their families and friends. Insults are hurled at them. They have a higher likelihood of being victims of violent crime. They have this awful, awful mental illness like gender dysphoria. They can't afford the surgery to try and get better, but
oh god, the emotional appeal. He's even got the music in the background. Also, da 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 da. Okay, so gender identity disorder is a diagnosis that was removed actually from the DSM-5. Dysphoria itself, though, is not the same thing that was removed. I could have sworn that dysphoria was removed from the DSM at some point, but no, it's identity disorder that's been removed.
oh, at least it's no longer called a manhole, and now it's called a maintenance hole.
That doesn't mean anything, Hunter. That doesn't mean anything at all. Also, Haberjai, you are correct. So dysphoria can happen without being trans, and being trans can happen without dysphoria. There's a correlation between the two, but they're not causal. At least you tried, kinda. I mean, that's like most of Hunter's channel, isn't it?
I hate that this California city is wrapping this stupidity up in a nice little package, a nice little present, stamped, "We care about trans people." This seriously does nothing to help trans people, and you say it's supposed to help broaden societal awareness of transgender people, but I have to ask,
who is saying that? Is it the news article that you didn't cite in your sources? Is it that? I would love to read the article that you're reading, but you don't cite your things, which really upsets me.
how? Do you think that some, like, giant bigot is gonna be scrolling through your city code and they're gonna be like, yeah, manhole, wait, maintenance hole? I should be more accepting of gender non-binary people.
No, but what's going to happen is they're going to see that and they're going to wonder why it was changed, and it's going to spark a conversation. Much like we're having here. Actually, in fact, the mere fact that you made this video proves the point. Let's say that it was a politician that said that this would actually help trans people. The conversation that has been begot from this municipal code being changed, that conversation alone that's happening right now, the one we're having on my chat, the one that we're having, me and this facsimile of Hunter that I'm grafting from his video, these are things that also help because they raise awareness of trans issues directly because of the municipal code and the social implications of that. You're literally creating you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where this thing is inevitably going to happen. These conversations are inevitably going to happen as a direct result of this. If they weren't going to happen, your video wouldn't exist. But here it is.
I've seen the rainbow. Even more so, you're using terms that kind of already exist. By changing terms like policeman to police officer, no one who reads this code is suddenly going to be brought societal awareness that some people are gender nonconforming.
No, but again, they're going to ask questions. And we're going to get here. Right here. Literally exactly where we are.
How is this going to help gender nonconforming or transgender people? The only way this would ever help is if, one, you had a crazy transgender person who was even dumb enough to get offended by a term like manhole, looking through your city code, and then saw gender nonconforming language, and then they were happy. Honey, you aren't doing anything to actually help transgender people. You're doing this cheap move to garner woke liberal brownie points at the expense of transgender people. If you actually cared about transgender people, you wouldn't be doing the bare minimum. So if you want to change your...
Wait, hold on. You can, A, care about trans people, and B, not lift a finger to help them. You can. Just like I can care about my family over there, but also not lift a finger to help them right now. I'm instead doing a video. You can. Now, it is a good expression of your caring to help people. That is a good thing to do. This is why I do trans-inclusive content on my channel. I find that to be important. I find it to be something that's incredibly helpful. You can do these things, but caring the emotion and doing something about it, the action, are separate things. One informs the other, but they are still separate.
City code in this asinine kind of way, go for it. I'm not stopping you. No one is. But don't pretend that you're doing this out of some deep care for transgender people, when in reality, you're not. You're trying to gather some woke brownie points.
How many times is he going to say woke Oh! I know why he's repeating this point over and over again. I get it. I understand. It didn't occur to me until just now the reason why Hunter is doing this. Here, guys. I'll go ahead and show you exactly what it is. One sec. Where is my use in every video folder? There we go. Hold on. I just figured out why he keeps on repeating the exact same thing over and over again ad nauseum. It makes sense to me now. I understand. So allow me to show, and again, I don't know if this is 100% the case, but I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb that it is. I'm going to show why he's doing this, why he's filling in airtime, as it were. I will get you in just a second, Baba. Yes, Baba? So, why would it be that Hunter is desperately trying to fill in airtime on his video? I can think of one reason. I can think of at least one. So for those who aren't aware, 10 minutes is a magic number for a YouTuber. Now, most of my episodes end up going well past the 10-minute mark, because the video response style that I do naturally lends itself to there being a lot more time inside. Also, in some instances, like the Evolutionists Say the Darndest Things episodes, when they're doing quote mining, there's a lot of information that has to go into that to deconstruct why the quote mine doesn't work. But in general, there's a reason that we actually have the 10-minute mark as an important thing on YouTube. And the reason for that is, at the 10-minute mark, you get to put in a mid-roll ad. Mid-roll ads allow you to make more money. Without mid-roll ads, I would not be able to sustain on my channel. Now, granted, I don't put mid-roll ads on every one of my videos, mainly because I'm not observant enough to remember that I didn't put them on. So that's my bad, and I'm sorry about that, because that's probably led to some of my financial distress. But mid-roll ads are very important for revenue. I'm not calling out Hunter for wanting to make enough money to sustain himself. But what I am calling him out is for fluffing up his content. Get past the 10-minute mark. Do it. 110%. I advocate for that. I'm a YouTuber as well. This is how I make all of my income. I get it. It's hard. You need to hit that 10-minute mark at the very least in order for a video to be profitable enough for you to continue into the next day. I agree 110% with this practice, but I don't agree with fluffing up your content artificially to get it there. There are healthier ways to do it. Like, for one, an end credit sequence with your patrons is a way to do it. If you really wanted to. That's one way you could go about it. Show some love back to your patrons who help you out, and then in so doing, you also manage to fluff up your video without adding actual fluff. So now people have a 9-minute video they can watch that doesn't have a bunch of fluff content in it. But, you know. Who knows?
And you're using transgender individuals as your political pawns. Thank you everyone for watching. Please give this video a like, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. And remember, don't go to California anytime soon, or you might fall into a maintenance hole.
Oof. Anywho, that was the video. That was Hunter. So we went through the Steven Crowder video, we went through a Hunter Avallone video. And honestly, my brain feels a little fried. Because really, the claim that trans people are just being used as political pawns is weird. Everybody is a political pawn in some way. My existence as an atheist is something that is used politically. Someone else's existence as an African American or as a white person is going to be used politically. That's something you can't avoid. Politics is unavoidable, whether or not you think you can. It has an influence on your life. So, it's really weird when Hunter is saying, like, oh, look, they're just trying to get woke brownie points 15 times in a video. When that's... Even if that's the case, everybody's going to be pawned at some point. It's just a fact of existence. And even so, I don't think that his point actually rests in reality that much. California, like he said, has always been progressive. Well, not always, but in the last few decades, it's been a very progressive state. This is just in line with the MO of the state. It's been doing that for a long time. Nothing's changed. Now, if they were doing something interesting and special, then yeah, maybe I would say that, yeah, that's a little weird. But it's not. That's just kind of in line with what California do. But who knows? Anywho, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, the Teespring shop thing is there as well. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to end the stream. Love you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Went over 2 videos today, and I will probably be chopping this up to make sure that it fits into 2 videos for people to view in smaller chunks later if they would like. Anywho, thank you guys.